Okay, I think we have some. Okay, the live stream has begun. Okay, we are admitting. Inshallah, we can start. Baykar, are you ready? Okay. Okay.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Welcome all to our weekly webinar. This week, again, we continue our series on the bodily resurrection, which is Akhirah, and again, we are following a text from Risale Nur, a tafsir on the Quran, and we are going through the text with a method called muzakara. So we'll read the text, inshallah, together, and our speakers will comment on the following text. We have Dr. Colin Turner from Durham, England, and Dr. Harun Pirim from Starkville, Mississippi this week. And what we are trying to going through this week is a follow-up of bodily resurrection again, yet it's a little bit steering the wheel to a different direction. Until now, we went through a lot of evidences, substantial proofs on the bodily resurrection, and now we will go through some other questions, which is related to the corporeal part, a bodily part of the resurrection. So why we are focusing, and Quran is focusing on the bodily resurrection. Inshallah, the text we are following is from the 11th ray by Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, the 8th topic. Before starting, I want to read a question which is in the 28th word, which is, I guess, kind of a good start to the whole topic. What connection with eternity and paradise has faulty, deficient, changing, unstable, and suffering corporeality? What connection with eternity and paradise has faulty, deficient, changing, unstable, and suffering corporeality? Since the spirit has elevated pleasures that is sufficient, why is bodily resurrection necessary for bodily pleasures? So I want to ask the speakers about this question. This is a very interesting one for me. Is it a legitimate question, or what does it mean to us? Because it will shed light to the whole topic, I believe. As a Ami Muslim, a regular Muslim on the street, when I first read this question on the collection, I thought, yeah, Ustad, Ustad Nursi, why is this question ever here? It's kind of, when you go to Akhirah, of course, you have a material, a corporeal paradise with, flowing rivers and huris and, different pleasures. So what does this question even means? It didn't really, in a way, didn't make sense to me. Why do we need even such a question? Then after I came to the United States, I saw that this is a major question for 2 billion Christians. They are not talking about bodily resurrection, or it is a very minority part of their focus. So it's kind of they're gonna be in the heaven with Jesus, etc. But our focus is very different. So we have a detailed description of paradise, hellfire. Actually, they have in their books the description of the hellfire, but it's more like they don't want to talk about it because it's not popular. The second one, so let me give the word to the speakers. What do I understand from this question? So how does it make sense to us? Then I want to say a couple of more words about it. Brother Harun, you want to go first? I can read the question again because Colin, it is not on the slides.
I want to hear Colin's views on this.
You want to go with Brother Colin first? Okay.
He's putting me on the spot now.
Yeah.
Can we have the question on the screen? Is it possible?
I can read it again, but it's not on the slides.
It's not on the slide. Yeah. Could you read it again, please?
What connection with eternity and paradise has faulty, deficient, changing, unstable, and suffering corporeality? Since the spirit has elevated pleasures that is sufficient, why is bodily resurrection necessary for bodily pleasures? Let me say this too. Not only, like some religions like Buddhism, Hinduism, but even in Islam, we have this concept in many parts of our tradition. We most of the time want to stop our nafs, right? Or train our nafs and boost our spirit and kind of perfect our spirit. And in order to really experience the spiritual pleasures, we want to kind of go over or pass through this material pleasures, but really focus on the spiritual side of it, or the existence of the creator, not this just material world. So this is deficient, faulty, changing, unstable corporeality, the material world. This is kind of low, and we want higher pleasures. We want to go over them. So how can I make sense of? So this is in our tradition too. What do you think? This is the focus on the materiality or corporeality. How does it make? Let's focus on this question first. Can we get this part of the problem? Because, as I said, as a just a regular Muslim, not a scholar of these topics, it didn't make sense to me.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Maybe it's because that corporeality is where deficit, deficiency, breakdown, illness, all of these things, that's where it becomes much more evident. The breakdown of matter, our bodies become old and decrepit. Illness inheres in corporeality, maybe. We can see decay, we can see, the breakdown of the human body as we get older. Also, even when we're young, our corporeal life is punctuated by certain necessities. I would say bathroom necessities, just to keep it on this side of propriety, which our physicality is very, how can I say, very obvious to some people. And a lot of people look upon physicality with distaste. The fact that we are flesh and blood, that we have bodily fluids. Ustad Nursi quite a number of times talks about children, when they are fed by their mothers on pure milk, he talks about this milk coming from a source in the body, which is the same source as other bodily fluids, such as blood and excrement, and various other bodily liquids. So corporeality, a lot of people look on it very ambivalently, not really sure how to understand, you know, this flesh and blood, these bones, these sinews, these nerves, which so easily can break down and which so easily can manifest illness, decay, and deficit. Maybe people have looked upon the human body not just as a site of wonder, which is how Ustad Nursi sees it, but as a site of everything that is foul and everything that is distasteful. So I think there is an ambivalence towards the human body, which suggests that how we understand the pleasures of the hereafter are really colored by how we see these very down-to-earth subjects, such as the human body, such as human flesh.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to talk more about the corporeal part, but is it because, you know, this defects, faults in the corporeal realm, is it more because it's not continuous? That's why it is hurting us? We talked about this in the previous weeks.
I think it reminds us, sorry.
Yeah, where's the deficiency come from mostly? Why we are not able to really, you know, take pleasure out of it? Most of the time it hurts us.
I think it's because it reminds us of our finitude. It reminds us of our limitation. It reminds us that we're human and that we have animal instincts to a certain extent, that we eat and we sleep and we urinate and we defecate just like all other animals do. And maybe this realization is something that we look upon with ambivalence. We try to hide it. And I know in the Christian world, I think there were certain denominations of Christianity that looked upon matter as evil. Mm-hmm. And I think this has actually permeated other currents of Christianity. And maybe it's also percolated down into Islam as well. This notion that the flesh, because the flesh decays, is somehow less than the spirit.
So that's why most of the time we try to turn our faces to an eternal realm, which offers higher pleasures, spiritual happiness. And this is, I guess, in the teachings of many religions, and including Islam, right? And then the question is, then why even, you know, Quran focuses on the bodily part of the resurrection? It is corporeal. It is talking about decayed bones coming back to life, and many of the worldly pleasures take a major place in the paradise, in the heaven. So how can we understand this? This is our question then today. Inshallah, we will try to focus on. Anything, Harun Abi, you want to add at this point?
Not to add, I think we will be going through. I want to generalize as everything as manifestation of Esmaül Hüsna, Allah's beautiful names. I think the questions arise mainly because of not seeing the wholeness of manifestation of beautiful names. Usually we are interested in, let's say, Gemali names. You know, there are two streams of names. One is Gemali, the other is Jelali. So since most of the time we are interested in Gemali stream, let's say, we ignore Jelali stream. I think this is one of the reasons, because big changes correspond to Jelali names, such as our bodies being dead, even the universe being dead, explosions, changes. So I would say mainly these are on the streams of Jalal. So maybe it's again the imbalance between this Jamali and Jalali names. But as we will go through, what I understand, once we are balanced with Esmaül Hüsna, we understand that actually corporeality is the reality. I mean, it has to be there. If it is not there, then it will be unbalanced Esmaül Hüsna understanding. So, which will be opposed to even the name Hakim. I just want to introduce the concept of Esmaül Hüsna because I think with this resurrection and even bodily resurrection, the main topic is manifestation of Esmaül Hüsna.
Thank you so much. I forgot to mention it in the beginning of the discussion. Yes, we were going through this evidences in the book of the universe, the creation, and the Quran, and our main focus was to try to prove the necessity of the akhirah, the afterlife, through the names of and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was our main topic, focus for the last 3 weeks. So this is kind of a continuation, but from a slightly different perspective. Why, this is a necessity, the corporeal part. We are not just focusing on the spiritual side, which is mostly in the teachings of the religions and many philosophers is a kind of a higher pleasure or existence. So I want to go on the text, inshallah. If brothers Colin or Harun doesn't have anything at this point. The most comprehensive mirror of the divine names lies in corporeality. The most comprehensive mirror of the divine names lies in corporeality. The richest and most active center of the divine aims in the creation of the universe lies in corporeality. The greatest variety of multifarious dominical bounties lies in corporeality. The greatest multiplicity of the seeds of the supplications and thanks man offers to his Creator through the tongues of his needs, again, lies in corporeality. And the greatest diversity of the seeds of non-physical and spirit worlds lies in corporeality. This is so important then. These are the major things that we observe. Just to have an application, I want to go to the next slide and I will inshallah come back to this items again. In order to multiply corporeality and make it manifest the above truths on the face of the earth with awesome activity and speed, the all-wise Creator clothes the successive caravans of beings in existence and sends them to that exhibition. Then he discharges them and sends others in their place, constantly making the factory of the universe run. Waving corporeal products, he makes the earth into a seedbed of the hereafter and paradise. So this corporeal side is very much observant. We can see it all around, and it is unending. It is coming and going, non-stop, continues to give products in the corporeal world. So what does it mean for us? Inshallah, let me go back to our list and start from the very beginning. The most comprehensive mirror of the divine names lies in corporeality. Brother Colin, you want to say anything on this part?
It's the most comprehensive mirror of the divine names is to be found in the fact that we have bodies, right? The fact of human physicality, which is for us, we're talking as human beings now, so corporeality we can talk about the human body. The fact that we have flesh and bones, sinews and nerves, limbs, members and organs. All of these wonderfully fashioned and brilliantly engineered artifacts are constructed with such amazing skill and such artistry that even after centuries of medical research, the most brilliant scholars in the world have not been able to come up with a blueprint for the creation of even the tiniest body part or even a single cell. So we're talking about something that actually manifests artistry, wisdom, knowledge, skill beyond comparison. So a comprehensive mirror means the place where the largest number of different attributes is reflected. Harun talked about the beautiful names, the beautiful attributes, Asmaul Husna. This is not just a question of single attributes, of course. Attributes appear sometimes singly, or we perceive them as being single. We look at something and we can see beauty, for example. Sometimes they appear singly, sometimes they appear in combination with others, that is, in various permutations and different configurations. Corporeality in general, and the human body in particular, is the place of manifestation of the greatest number of names and the greatest number of permutations of names in creation. Ustad Nursi says it is the richest and most active center of divine aims behind the creation of the universe. So if you think just for 5 minutes about what your body does and what your body is, and you try to think of as many different divine attributes as you can think of tens of attributes, maybe hundreds of attributes even. So it's quite clear that the human body is has been picked out as being unique in this respect. Corporeality is the place of manifestation of the greatest number of names and the greatest number of combinations of names. It's the most active divine center in that sense.
Thank you. Brother
Okay.
Harun?
I had just taken some notes on some examples. As human beings, we are understanding with examples. The examples just make things closer to our minds. I was thinking of, for example, a tip of a pencil. When we think tip of a pencil, it's kind of negligible. But when we think about it, behind the civilization, we could say it is the tip of a pencil. Because by the tip of a pencil, we are generating new ideas and for us, new meanings. Think about a writer without keyboard, which is tip of a pencil. Then any writer would not be able to express, even generate meaning from their minds and hearts. So it requires the keyboard or tip of a pencil. In this example, tip of pencil is the corporate reality. Corporate reality should be there in order to have spiritual experience. We cannot have spiritual experience without the body. That's the fact. We cannot just divide them. Also, for example, musical instruments. Let's think about some musicians and let's think that they don't have any musical instruments. Here, musical instruments are corporeality. So without instruments, there is no notes, there is no musical meaning, there is no sense at all. Even if you have a feeling of music, you will not be able to express and you will not even sense it in the best sense, let's say. So musical instrument corporeality has to be there. Or let's think about canvas for a painter. Canvas is corporeality in this example. Any painter has to have canvas in order to express the beautiful sightseeings in their paintings. And the last example I'm thinking about is adapter. Adapter is a very nice device. Think about all electrical devices. If any device lacks adapter, they will burn, they will not function at all. So the corporeality serves as an adapter for our spirits. We cannot sense at the right amount of manifestations of divine names if you don't have this body adapter. So these are some of the examples that I'm thinking of to make it closer to our minds.
I think they're excellent examples, actually. I applaud them. And I think we should add another example, and that is the soil. And Ustad Nursi uses the soil many, many times in very different ways as an example. The soil in which we sow seeds of different plants and trees. The soil itself is dark and it dirties your hands and you can find insects in it. But out of it grows this whole multifarious plant world and trees and shrubs of all different colors, of all different scents. Without that soil, which is the same the world over, giving rise to, you know, this sort of variegated world of plants and trees and flowers, without that soil as the canvas, then we wouldn't have those things. We wouldn't be able to have all of this richness, you know, this largesse, really, this divine largesse of so many different species, so many different kinds of plants.
Amazingly, Said Nursi uses soil as the place for manifestation of Ismi Hafiz and Muhi, for example. And he says actually soil is one of the main, let's say, concepts, of course, realistic concept, where a lot of Esma al-Husna manifests conceptually, you know. He says one of the Arsh, you know, Arsh Azam is the concept where all beautiful names manifest. And he says this world is kind of heart center of the whole universe. And we know that heart is as Arsh also, where beautiful names manifest. So from there, he takes soil as one of the main Arsh, main places of names manifestation.
I thought of the soil when you said canvas. I thought canvas is a brilliant example, because without the canvas, you know, none of the outpouring of artistic skill would be visible. You know, the artist has to have a canvas, and the flowers and the trees, you know, this huge variety of beautiful multicolored flowers with all of their different scents, all of their different attributes, all of their different qualities, are all coming from this very base material, the soil.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. Even we are soil, right? I mean,
even we are from the soil. And Ustad talks about, you know, when he's talking about the whole of creation, he often says as arsh to farsh, you know, using the Persian expression, from the arsh, from the throne of creation down to the very carpet under our feet, which is the earth. You know, these are the canvases. I think your example of the canvas was a brilliant one.
So we can't imagine without canvas, without soil, or without corporeality in general, manifestation of any meaning.
Absolutely. And this Ustad goes on to talk about corporeality being like a seedbed. So even he makes that connection between the body as a canvas. I think the body as a canvas is a very interesting way of seeing it. The body as a garden, the body as a seedbed, and the body as an adapter. I think your examples all fit this. These are really stunning examples, and I think we need to record them, you know, because to use them as examples in the future is very helpful when we're describing corporeality and what it actually signifies.
So as limited, temporary, fleeting beings, we are trying to make sense of eternity, eternal attributes of God, the Creator. And on this journey, it's only possible through our core, not only, but in many ways, we are using corporeal work, corporeality as the best tool in our hands. So our existence, continuation, or our journey to eternity as limited, temporary, fleeting beings is linked to be a manifestation, a mirror to the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to access that, to make sense or learn or to be the best mirror is only possible through the corporeal world, or mostly possible through the corporeal world, as far as I understand from the commands or the introduction part.
Yes, definitely. Maybe from switching to another passage also, there is another aspect here that I see, which is about supplications. You know how to say the what do you call it? The spirit or the message of creation is actually human beings or all the creations being created, and there's a creation. So created beings, actually, they are important, inherently lacking any power. So what we call ajz. So ajz concept is connected to corporeality. If we don't have corporeality, how would we feel ajz? How would we understand our inherent nature? Again, with the canvas example, if we don't hold there as a canvas, how would the names would be manifested? Impossible. So in this sense, the matter itself, it's a way to change. Everything is changing in the universe in general sense. So this matter connects us with the name Kadir. We know that actually matter is manifestation of the name Kadir. So Said Nursi uses the name Kadir with, manifestation of matter, especially. So Allah Kadir, and we have the ajz. So this composition is integrated, let's say. So we are lacking power, Allah Kadir. So we are corporate reality, and Allahu Kadir is manifesting names within our corporeality nature, let's say. And so we are doing supplication.
So this is being,
No, go on. No, carry on.
So this is being a mirror by the opposites, kind of, right?
Right.
In a way, we are limited, but in that sense, we can even imagine about, dream about, or hope about, or try to understand about an eternal reality and absolute reality within that limited corporeal world with the opposites, because we have, again, as you said, these needs or the feelings that can ask for that absolute meaning. Brother Colin?
No, I was just going to say that, we have samawat, but we also have ard, Allah is the creator of samawat and ard. You need the ard as well as the samawat. If you understand samawat to be the spiritual aspect of things, then the ard is the material, corporeal aspect of things. So we need both. And Brother Harun was exactly right. We can't understand, actually, most of the names we cannot understand without corporeality. If there is no material world, how can we understand up or down? Right? We have to have corporeality to be able to understand most things, actually. So we shouldn't really downplay it or underestimate its importance. And it's only a seedbed. That's the whole point. This is how Ustad Nursi sees it. If we see it as something which is quite distasteful on occasion, it doesn't matter. I mean, we don't bring soil into the house because soil has lots of things which may contaminate. But at the same time, soil is the canvas for the painting of these wonderful flowers. I can't get away from the idea of canvas. I think it's wonderful. The matter itself is a canvas. upon which the divine artist paints his pictures.
So the art, the earth is kind of dark, colorless, humble, doesn't really show off, right? Like, looks like incapable of many things, but it just becomes a bed or a mirror to the most of the manifestations in that sense. So it could be also we can see it like the example brother Harun talked about. It's kind of being a mirror with the opposites. So it's such a dark mirror. It's such a looks like an incapable mirror, but it's subject to object to most of the manifestations of divine names in that sense.
And I'm amazed with the logical flow of this passage. From this passage, we are reasoning on the necessity of corporeality. Then this necessity is taking us that this necessity should be in the hereafter as well. I mean, it's building up. I'm amazed with the logical flow in this passage.
Let me go through one by one again, and inshallah, feel free to stop me at any point to comment. The most comprehensive mirror of the divine names lies in corporeality. The richest and most active center of the divine aims in the creation of the universe lies in corporeality. So we come to this world to know and learn about the Creator, and these are the tools in the corporeal world. The material world is the best that we can use. The greatest variety of the multifarious dominical bounties lies in corporeality. So it is limited. It is for a short time. We have limited devices, but as we talked in the previous weeks, it gives a sense of continuation to us. It is coming in abundance. Everybody, believer, unbeliever, animal, plant, everything, benefits from it. And it's not just our stomach. We have, as human beings, we have all the other devices, like our ears, our eyes, our other senses, feelings, benefit from these blessings and bounties in the corporeal world. The greatest variety of the multifarious dominical bounties lies in corporeality. That gives us the sense of we should continue to benefit from these blessings. It's coming, kind of shows the necessity of its continuation to us. The greatest multiplicity of the seeds of the supplications and thanks man offers to his Creator through the times of his needs, again, lies in corporeality. The greatest multiplicity of the seeds of the supplications and thanks man offers to his Creator through the tongues of his needs, again lies in corporeality. And the greatest diversity of the seeds of the non-physical and spirit worlds also lies in corporeality.
Even interestingly, physically, we know our brain is an excellent example for corporeality. Brain has a lot of sensors, let's say, and when you touch a small part of the brain, it disables some of important functions such as walking, sensing, hearing, seeing. So little parts of the brain just helps us to integrate in a way. So just using again the word adapter, so the brain is a perfect adapter. So we cannot adapt to this physical realm without this adapter. And I'm especially thinking about this sentence, which says diversity of the seeds of the non-physical and spirit sentence, you know, the last sentence. So I think some psychological sicknesses, they say if there's a problem, physical problem with some part of the brain, you start seeing hallucination. So you see illusions. So it's kind of some physical interaction makes people see some imaginary stuff. So I think this sentence also just shows us the, let's say, fine minute connection between physical and non-physical. Since brain is very sensitive physical existence, so even if you play a little bit with it, let's say, your spiritual realm will be manifesting, let's say, even if it is senseless, it will be manifesting some different illusions.
So you're talking about this last statement, the greatest diversity of states of the non-physical and spirit worlds also lies in corporeality. So we have a key in corporeality to step in those realms, right?
I don't know, Colin Hocam, do you agree with this spiritual generation of physical things, or maybe I just
I think that the connection between the physical and the spiritual is finer than we think. We make a big demarcation line, a big, thick demarcation line between the two, and I think it's much finer than that. I think there is a seamless connection between the two, rather than being any kind of robust, strong demarcation between them. I find it very interesting that, having a body gives rise to need. And Harun, you talked about ajz before, about impotence. Without having a body, we can't understand what need is. And Ustad Nursi sees these needs as, again, going back to the idea of the flower bed. Our needs are a kind of flower bed where we sow seeds. These are the seeds of supplication, dua, and also Ustad talks about the seeds of thanks, shukr. These are offered through the metaphorical tongue of these needs and on account of that very corporeality that we're talking about. It's interesting that Ustad says that God makes the earth, or corporeality indeed, a kind of seedbed for the hereafter. And I find it very interesting. I don't know whether we're going to look at it today when he talks about the physical stomach. Mm-hmm. And I think this fits in with what you were talking about, the non-physical, because the physical stomach hungers for immortality. In other words, it hungers for its own continued existence. Our stomach, as we all experience, wants to go on living. And since, as we know, it's never satisfied, we can all assume that our stomach wants to live forever. And in the 11th ray, if I remember correctly, Nursi says that in order to satisfy the physical stomach, the Creator has prepared a whole variety of beautifully created, wonderfully constructed foods, all of them affording different kinds of sensual pleasure and gratification, not just for the stomach, but for the eyes, for the tongue, for the brain. This suggests that in the hereafter, most of the different pleasures of paradise will be bodily pleasures. But apart from this, Ustad asks us to consider this prayer that our hungry stomachs make, and the fact that God accepts the prayer by giving us different kinds of food. And he likens that prayer that the stomach makes to the prayer that we make collectively as human beings for the hereafter. And he talks about our collective stomach, humankind's collective stomach, yes. And it has metaphorical hunger for immortality, just as our physical stomach has hunger for, its continued existence in this world. I think this bringing together of the two stomachs, one physical, one metaphorical, is an amazing piece of writing. It's an amazing analogy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm amazed with this point, especially. And civilization, in a way, working for bodily relaxation. I mean, why
Yes.
civilization exists? Because of the comforts in our bodies, let's say.
Yes.
Then in the hereafter, it should be in the perfect sense. I mean, the same thing should be there in the perfect sense.
Absolutely. I mean, the way that Ustad uses the hunger of the physical stomach as a parallel, you know, as a correspondence with the hunger of the human spiritual stomach for eternal life, you know, is beyond clever, really. You know, what he's saying basically is just as our physical stomachs have a hunger for continued existence, we also have spiritual stomachs. And our spiritual stomachs also experience hunger, but it's hunger for eternal life. And that eternal life will be, as this life, a mixture of the spiritual and the corporeal. But as you suggested, Harun, the corporeal in the next world will be a very, very refined corporeality. It won't be the same corporeality that we have here, because it won't break down, it won't decay, it won't rust, it won't go old. And these are the things which dismay us in this world. It's not the fact that we have bodies, it's the fact that our bodies break down. That is what we cannot tolerate. We cannot stomach, in a sense.
Yeah, very nice analysis. Yeah.
I guess we also have a question related to this. So it's kind of asking, as far as I understand, I'm kind of putting it in my own words. Can't we just go spiritually through all these things? Can God, you know, make us taste all these things through our spiritual beings, but not the material side, the corporeal world? So is it related to this? You know, the pain or the breakdowns, the crisis we experience also is in the corporeal world. That's why we are complaining about that part and look into just the spiritual side of it. That's kind of our approach. Or do you want to comment on this? Or was that clear, my question? I don't know.
I think your question was clear. Your question was clear. You know, can we not experience all of these things spiritually rather than physically? Well, I think the short answer is no. At least at the beginning, we need a body at the beginning in order to be able to understand all of the things, as we've said, that the body signifies. You know, all of the names that the body invokes. We need the body for that, and we need the body to continue. But what we don't need is for the body to break down. In other words, we don't need the negatives, the decay, the deficit, the lack. These things will be taken away in the next world. But, you know, for a fish to understand that it's in water, it has to be taken out of water. So for us to be able to understand what spiritual pleasures are, we have to understand them first through the corporeal side of things. As Harun said, without the corporeal side of creation, there are many, many names which would never, ever be apprehended. So we have to come out of that spirituality. We were in a state of spirituality in the previous world and in a state of refined corporeality. But to understand what that is, we have to come out of it. And this is why we are faced in this world with a corporeal entity which breaks down, which decays, which is limited, which is finite, which has ajz and faqr. So the answer is, well, both yes and no, actually. But at the beginning, we need a body in order to ground ourselves in an understanding of the Asmaul Husna. I'm not sure whether that has answered the question.
And just to complement, I think it's an amazing question. Thanks to the person who asked it. I translate this question like this: could Allah just remove some of his names? I think I would translate this question like this, and I would say Allah does not remove some of his names. You know, it's Allah's names, and some names requires corporeality.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
we are trying to understand what are these names and how these names are manifested. You know, this is the philosophical, let's say, or ontological urge that we are going behind. This is a very deep topic, I would say, but the short answer is Allah does not leave off any of his names.
It's a very diplomatic answer.
Right.
So the more we are an object, a mirror to the manifestations of the eternal one, the more we are kind of worthy to go to eternity, or to, you know, to continue to our adventure in a sense, as far as I understand. And it's the only way to do it is through corporeality. For example, I remember this verse saying that inna khalaqnal insana fi ahsani taqwim. So insan is created in the best of forms, right? But to me, to have these deficiencies, sicknesses, crises, breakdowns is not perfect. But on the other side, as far as I understand what you're saying, to understand or to be a manifestation to certain names and attributes of God with my limited being to his absolute existence is only through opposites.
Can I give an example? Very
Yes,
quick,
sure.
a very quick example. When Allah says that, or when the Quran says that Allah is above certain things, we don't understand that physically. We understand it metaphorically as above. But in order to be able to understand what above is, we have to have dimensionality. And dimensionality needs corporeality and materiality. So in order to be able to understand physically what above is, above and below, so that we can understand what that means in the abstract sense, we have to have above and below. Physically, we have to have above and below. So for these very, very simple understandings, we need materiality, we need corporeality, we need dimension, we need space, we need physicality. So even for understanding very simple things, you know, such as God being above something, I don't mean physically above, I mean conceptually above. But to understand what above means conceptually, we have to understand what it means physically, because that's how we get the idea of something being elevated. Does that make sense? Because Harun is saying that, quite understandably, that without physicality and corporeality, the names would not be clear. God's names would not be apprehensible. But it's not just God's names, it's very simple concepts such as up and down.
Yeah, I think very nice example, just to the point. Recently, I had read a small piece from a professor. I don't remember the name, but it was a short, very nice article about metaphysics. So he was talking about metaphysics, the meaning of metaphysics, whatever. I will not get into details, but he's accepting that there are two main streams of knowledge. One is metaphysical, the other is physical. So even the humankinds right now, even the science, let's say, even the experts, whatever I see right now, really accepting that there are two sides. One is physical, the other is metaphysical side. So even with this approach, I would say physical side is corporeality. It is there. It has to be there. And
I would agree.
And as you say, to understand above, we should have a sound understanding of corporeality.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for many things, we need to have matter. How would we understand them otherwise? It would be impossible. And as you said, the only way that we could dispense with corporeality is if we're God, if we're God to withhold his names. And we know that that doesn't happen.
And if we attach it to the names, then the names are eternal. It will be in the hereafter as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Inshallah, I want to go to the next slide. In fact, to gratify man's physical stomach, he listens to and accepts the prayer for immortality, continuation the stomach makes through the tongue of disposition, affording it the greatest importance, and in order to answer it, prepares in corporeality incalculable numbers of innumerable sorts of kinds of artistic foods and precious bounties, all affording different pleasures. This demonstrates, proves self-evident and without doubt that in the hereafter, the most numerous and various of the pleasures of paradise will be corporeal, and that the bounties of the eternal abode of bliss, which everyone wants and is familiar with, will be corporeal. So again, kind of, we need the corporeality to be a mirror to the manifestations of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the deficiencies, the faults that hurt us, the incontinuation, the ephemeral part, this kind of will stay in this world, and we will get the reward in a higher sense in the akhirah. Is that what you understand, Harun abi?
Yes, actually, this part, I think Colin Hocam talk about this passage, right, in terms of stomach here. Since the prayers of our stomach is accepted, as we obviously see, we are satisfied every day. The needs of our stomach is satisfied every day. So, but then as metaphorically, our stomach as humans is longing for eternal pleasures, let's say, and then this stomach has to be satisfied as well, and not just in the physical, spiritual realm, also in the physical realm. If Allah just satisfies us physically here as a correspondence to our stomach need, then we like physical things. We like apple. We want to taste apple. Tasting apple is something physical. So we want the best apple in the hereafter, and we want to taste the apple in the best way. So this is how I understand it.
Brother Colin?
No, I would agree with that. I was going to ask someone, maybe a neurologist or a biologist or someone who knows science much better than I do, which is not very much at all. And pleasure, we think of pleasure as something that is physical, as sensory. But the pleasure centers in the brain. Is there any evidence that these are actually non-physical, these pleasures? The pleasure that we feel when we eat something that's very tasty, is that it's a physical sensation? I mean, the acts which take place for that pleasure to entail, they're all physical, but is the actual pleasure something that can be physically, how can I say, demonstrated? Is it a physical pleasure, or is the pleasure non-material, non-physical?
I think this is one of the main discussions between science and philosophy. So we can quite discuss about this topic. But the thing I think over there is the sensors. So sensors are physical. Yeah. Nobody can deny this. So sensors are physical, and pleasures, maybe the first place, bodily pleasures we are talking about. I'm not talking about feeling of contentful, feeling of compassion. Maybe these are deeper things. Yeah. But having a nice pleasure eating apple or eating chocolate that you like, you know.
Yes.
I think that this requires the tongue sensor, as you say, brain sensor, all of the sensors, bodily sensor processing. If they don't process, we are not going to, even the smell, right? If I don't smell the chocolate, it will be lacking some pleasure. If I don't taste it, it will be lacking another dimension of pleasure. And also brain, let's say that my brain related part is not working to translate the electricity, then I will not have the taste of chocolate. There are many, many constraints, physical constraints happening over there.
Do you see it possibly as a spectrum, pleasure being a spectrum, coming from the densely physical to the less physical to the more elevated, more sublime kind of non-material pleasure? For example, you talked about compassion. That feeling clearly isn't a physical feeling, although it may have physical repercussions. But you know, the feeling of sadness when you see something that is, you know, pitiable. Do you see it as a spectrum possibly, when we talk about base physical pleasures, and then the more refined pleasures, you know, the more aesthetically mediated pleasures?
Yes, mashallah. Actually, you opened a new window in me. I feel like these pleasures are also manifestations of some names. So let's say bodily pleasures correspond to some different names, and let's say the feelings that we feel in the heart, they correspond to different names. Again, if we cut off the bodily part, then we will be deprived from the manifestations, which is reacted by our some feelings in us.
Right.
So I think, yes, there's a spectrum of feelings, and to be a perfect person, we should have this bodily lacking side to reflect and feel bodily pleasures. And also we should have, let's say, higher level capacities coming from the heart mainly, let's say, to reflect other names and to feel contentful, compassion, and so on.
Be interesting to develop that idea further.
That's right. That's right. I found it quite important place for us to study.
Maybe you know, an appropriate place to stop, because I think it's now 6 o'clock.
Yes.
6 o'clock here anyway. I don't know what time it is there.
I didn't notice that.
We are out of time for this week. I was going to, yes. All right. Any comments before we stop for this week? Inshallah, next week we'll continue on the benefits of believing in the afterlife for our social life, personal life. Maybe we can touch to this part also in a way. Harun Abi, you want to make a dua before we close, inshallah?
I would say, Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Thanks for everyone.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully